So in our passage from Mark 5 this morning, we have two stories. Two stories and two people who come in amongst a crowd to approach Jesus. The first person we hear of is Jairus. He's an important figure in the community. He's a powerful man, a man of good social standing. As he passed through the crowds of people who come to see Jesus, the crowd parted for him. He didn't need to push through. They showed him deference. As Jairus passed through to come to Jesus, they stood aside to make way out of respect. Perhaps at the same time wondering what had happened to upset Jairus. He seemed desperate to get to this man, Jesus. And then there was a woman. We don't know her name. In fact, the people around her pretended not to know her too. They pretended not to notice her at all. This woman moved quietly through the crowd, head bowed, face covered. An unmarried woman in ancient Near Eastern society, this woman had no protector. She'd spent all her money on physicians trying to get well, but she'd only gotten worse. She was powerless, made unclean and impure by her illness, and poor because of her sickness. She was completely bereft of power, outcast, lowly, powerless. She is desperate, and Jesus notices her. Not only does he notice her, he stops on his way to heal another, to speak to her, to give her his attention. We were in India, it's going on, I think, 9 years ago now. But the memories of India and the experiences are so vivid in my mind. The first night we were there, we stayed in Delhi, and we were in this beautiful hotel in Delhi. It was right near Delhi Central Core in Green Park. Wasn't really what I expected to see in India. The hotel had marble floors in the bathroom, a large, comfortable king bed, fluffy pillows. In the streets surrounding the hotel, there were nice cars, large houses, apartment blocks. We were in the part of town where politicians and powerful families lived. A day later, as we headed to the train station before sunrise, we saw a different side of India. As we drove through the streets, piles of rubbish on the side of the road got larger, buildings smaller and more run down. As we came closer to the station, we saw more and more people in the darkness sleeping on the side of the road. Some in rickshaws, some in the front of shops. And then we came to this big roundabout right near the station, and looking out of the car window in the dim light, we could see hundreds of sleeping bodies lying in the middle of the roundabout, men, women and children. And then I looked to the other side of the road, right near where we were driving, and on a median strip, a whole family were huddled in a pile sleeping, and the little legs of a child sticking out right near inches from where cars were driving by. And I thought about our hotel and the people on the other side of town asleep in king-size beds. I saw the poverty I expected to see in India, but the contrast shocked me. To my eyes, there was this overt class distinction, and those who had nothing were trapped in poverty, working as hard as they could to escape, desperate for a way out. Two desperate people come before Jesus in this story. There's a clear power disparity between them, but Jesus' actions show that for him, they both deserve attention. In Romans 3:23, it says, "All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God." But in John 3:16, it says, "God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, so that everyone who believes in him may not perish, but have eternal life." We are all loved And through Jesus' life, death, and resurrection, through the atonement that was made for our sin, we can all be forgiven. We are all able to come to our God, no matter how much or how little we have in this lifetime. We are all in desperate need of Jesus. And fortunately for us, Jesus cares for all people, no matter what their circumstances. Jairus sought out Jesus directly. He approached him in the crowd and he fell at Jesus' feet and he said, "Jesus, I've heard of your power. My daughter is near death. Please, Jesus, won't you come to her?" This was the distressed plea of a man longing to save his daughter. The other woman in the crowd who needed Jesus couldn't come before him like that. Her approach was not open and straightforward like Jairus. She hid from Jesus. If only I could get to him. If I can but touch his robe, I know I will be healed. Perhaps if I hide my face and push through this crowd, I can get in close to this Jesus. If I can but touch his robe. Maybe it was shame or fear that stopped her from coming to him openly, but still she was driven to come to him. She needed Jesus' touch. Jairus, powerful and holy synagogue leader, approaches Jesus and asks for help. A woman desperately comes up behind Jesus and grasps at his clothes. They both approach Jesus as best they can, and although it may seem to us that Jairus has gone about things in the right way, and perhaps this woman has been sly or not quite upfront in her approach, Jesus gives healing to them both. When you receive an invitation to a party, I wonder what you check first. Maybe you make sure the date doesn't clash with some other plans you have. Perhaps you check where the party will be held or the time. I always like to look at the dress code. I start thinking about whether I can buy a new dress. It's been a bit of a wedding year this year, and Brad and I are off to another wedding in just a couple of weeks' time. But the last wedding in my immediate family, the last person in my immediate family to get married was my brother, some time ago now, but I definitely bought a new dress for that one and a truly amazing pair of red shoes. But I'm pretty sure my dad tried to spend as little money as possible. He had the suit that he wore to my wedding and my sister's wedding still in the cupboard from 10 years before, yes, and he decided that would do. He's like, why would I buy another suit if I already own one? My mother insisted he have it dry cleaned despite his protestations, and we even went out and bought him a new tie again under protest. My dad's idea of a party is one where he can wear shorts and his Sunday thongs. Yes, the Sunday thongs. Look, these are the good thongs, okay? For him, the best dress code to read on any party invitation would be, "Come as you are." When we come to Jesus, we don't need to do things in an approved order. We don't need to approach him in a conventional way. Our words don't need to be eloquent. We don't need to read exactly what is stated in the sinner's prayer, although that might be helpful for some. There's no set way to approach Jesus. We just need to come to him. Jesus accepts our approach. His invitation says, "Come as you are." When the woman comes to Jesus, she touches his cloak and she's instantly healed. Just the touch of the Son of God's garment brought instant and complete healing to the woman after 12 years of suffering. She was restored to health and feels instantly that she's been made well. Jesus' touch was all it took for her to be healed. But this is more than a story of healing for this woman, because being made well means more to this woman than just physical well-being. The restoration that Jesus has provided her with goes well beyond health. Being healed for this woman means that she can be clean, and that means she can be part of the community again. She can rejoin society. She can rejoin cultic worship of Yahweh once more. For her, physical healing means that she is restored to wholeness, restored to fullness of life, accepted in society. For Jairus' daughter, Jesus takes her hand and she is restored to life. We know from the story that the family had already begun to mourn her loss, but for Jairus, Jesus' healing touch has restored his family, restored his daughter to him and his wife. Sometimes we read stories of Jesus healing miracles in the Bible and we focus on the physical healing that is taking place. When we come to the story with that focus, though, we start to think about our lives and we think about people that we know, some who've been healed from sickness and others who haven't. And we wonder why does God seem to heal some people and not others? In this story, we see that both Jairus and the woman have great faith, and sometimes we think, if only I had enough faith. I want to say that that's a dangerous message to believe, to think that Jesus only acts because the people in this story have faith enough, in a way, robs Jesus of the power that he is exhibiting here. Jesus' actions are not determined by humankind's ability to believe in him. His actions here restore health, but the focus of the story is not the health of those who've been restored. There's an important phrase that often becomes our focus as we read this passage. Jesus says to the woman, "Daughter, your faith has made you well." But translated literally, this phrase is, "Your faith has saved you." You see, there's more going on here than physical healing. Jesus brings restoration in this story. He brings wholeness and he brings salvation. Jesus, by his power, restores people to wholeness, and his touch brings restoration. This story does contain a call to faith, but Jesus' response doesn't rely on the strength of our faith. It's while we are still sinners that Christ died for us. It's grace that saves us. Grace that works in our lives before we even know it. Grace that convicts us, and grace that draws us to Jesus and brings us to believe. We often focus on the faith of the woman or the faith of Jairus in this story, but the good news in this story is about Jesus and his power. This is not a story about how much faith we need to have in order to be healed. It's a story about how much power Jesus has. Just a touch. Power over sickness, power over sin, power over death. Jesus' power transforms and restores. Jesus sees beyond the superficial. He accepts us when we approach him, and he restores us by his power, transforming our lives and making us whole. I'm going to have some time of reflection now, and the band is going to come and help us. I want to encourage you now, though, to take time to reflect, to come to Jesus with your need. Come to him as you are. Come to him who can transform your life inside and out. Come and pray. Come and receive restoration, salvation, wholeness, a new infilling of the Spirit and knowledge of his love. Come as you are to Jesus. Only he can transform and restore.